Welcome, Thesaurus Thrivers, to another episode where we dive deep into making you, well, a thriver. Today, we're tackling a topic that so many of you have asked about: how to become a topper in English fluency. You know, that person who just seems to effortlessly command the language, no matter the situation. We're talking secret tips, mindset shifts, and practical strategies that actually work. I'm Lily, and with me today is my wonderful co-host, Ava.
Hey everyone, it's great to be back. And Lily, I love that framing, topper in English fluency, because it's not just about academic scores, right? It's about confidence, effective communication, and truly expressing yourself. Many of our listeners want to reach that level where they don't second-guess every word, where conversations flow naturally. It's a goal that feels almost out of reach for some, but it absolutely isn't.
Exactly. And the truth is, becoming proficient, becoming a topper in anything, whether it's studies or a skill like English, often comes down to a set of consistent habits and a particular mindset, not necessarily innate talent. I mean, we've all been there, right? Staring at an English textbook, feeling overwhelmed, or wanting to speak but just freezing up.
Oh, absolutely. I remember my early days learning a second language, and the fear of making mistakes was crippling. It's like you have all this vocabulary and grammar knowledge in your head, but it just won't come out when you need it most. That's a huge barrier for many people trying to improve their English fluency.
Totally. So let's kick things off with what I consider one of the most powerful secret tips for becoming a topper in anything, including English fluency: the 2-minute rule. This is a concept often talked about in productivity circles, but it's incredibly potent for language learning. Ava, have you used this or seen its impact?
I absolutely swear by the 2-minute rule, Lily. For anyone who hasn't heard of it, the idea is simple. If a task takes less than 2 minutes to do it immediately. And for bigger tasks, if you can start it in under 2 minutes, just start. The magic isn't in completing the task in 2 minutes, but in overcoming the inertia, that initial resistance. For English, this is a game changer.
It really is. Think about it. Instead of saying, I need to study English for an hour today, which feels like a mountain, you say, I'm going to spend 2 minutes reading an English article. Or, I'm going to spend 2 minutes trying to articulate my day in English out loud. Suddenly, the barrier to entry collapses, and often those 2 minutes turn into 5, then 10, then 20, because you've already started.
Exactly. That initial push is the hardest part. For example, instead of thinking, I need to write a full journal entry in English, you could just aim to write 2 sentences describing your breakfast. Or, I need to listen to a 30-minute podcast. No, just listen to the first 2 minutes. The small win of actually starting creates momentum. This is how toppers build consistent habits. They break down intimidating goals into tiny, achievable steps.
And that consistency, however small, is far more effective than sporadic, long study sessions. Imagine doing just 2 minutes of active English practice every single day for a year. That's 730 minutes of practice you wouldn't have had otherwise. And realistically, it will be much more, because those 2 minutes so often extend. This simple rule builds discipline without feeling like a chore.
It's genius. And it addresses that common problem of, I don't have enough time. Everyone can find 2 minutes. Even on the busiest day, you can quickly vocalize a few sentences about what you're doing or thinking. So that's tip number 1 for becoming a topper. Leverage the 2-minute rule to beat procrastination and build consistency.
All right, moving on to our next secret tip for English fluency toppers, and this one is about immersing yourself. Now, I know what many of you are thinking, but Lily, I don't live in an English-speaking country. And that's totally valid. But immersion isn't just about geography. It's about creating an English bubble around yourself wherever you are.
This is crucial. You have to actively seek out English. Change your phone language to English, your computer. Watch movies and TV shows with English subtitles first, then without. Listen to English music and try to understand the lyrics. Find English podcasts, like this one, that genuinely interest you, so it doesn't feel like studying. This exposure builds your passive vocabulary and listening comprehension immensely.
And don't forget reading. Read articles, blogs, even short stories or news in English. If you enjoy cooking, find English recipes. If you're into gaming, follow English-speaking streamers. The goal is to make English a natural, unavoidable part of your daily life, not just something you interact with during designated study time. The more you encounter it, the more your brain processes it without conscious effort.
Yes, exactly. It's about shifting your environment. Think about how children learn their native language. They're just constantly surrounded by it, soaking it in. We need to mimic that as much as possible as adults. Toppers don't just learn English, they live English. They make it their default setting wherever they can. That passive intake becomes active understanding over time.
Absolutely. Now, let's talk about something that often differentiates a good English speaker from a topper: active speaking practice. This is where many people stumble. They understand a lot, they can read well, but when it comes to opening their mouth, there's a huge mental block. Toppers don't let that block define them.
The fear of making mistakes is the biggest culprit here. We're so worried about sounding silly or getting the grammar wrong that we just opt for silence. But you cannot achieve fluency without speaking. It's a muscle that needs to be exercised. Start with yourself, talk to yourself in English. Narrate your actions, describe your thoughts. It might feel weird at first, but it's incredibly effective for building confidence and accessing vocabulary.
That's such a great point, Ava. Talking to yourself in English is a completely judgment-free zone. You can make all the mistakes you want. You can pause, rephrase, try different words. It trains your brain to formulate sentences on the fly. And once you're comfortable doing that, the next step is finding speaking partners. There are so many apps and online communities specifically designed for language exchange now.
Right. Find someone at a similar level or even a native speaker willing to do an exchange. Don't be afraid to sound less than perfect. Every mistake is a learning opportunity. A topper embraces mistakes. They see them as feedback, not failures. They know that progress isn't linear, and sometimes you have to fall to learn how to stand taller.
That's a powerful way to put it. And when you are speaking, try to focus on conveying your message, not on perfect grammar every single time. Fluency is about communication, not perfection. The grammar will improve over time with more exposure and practice. Just get the words out.
Another speaking tip for those aiming to be toppers: record yourself. Use your phone's voice recorder. Describe your day, read a paragraph from a book, or even just talk about a random topic for a minute. Then listen back. You'll catch pronunciation issues, awkward phrasing, and areas where you struggle for words. It's invaluable self-correction.
Oh, that's brilliant, Ava. It can be a little cringeworthy at first, I'll admit, listening to your own voice, but it's incredibly effective. It gives you an objective perspective. It's like having a private tutor point out exactly where you need to improve, without the cost. Toppers are proactive in finding their weaknesses and working on them.
Exactly. And speaking of specific weaknesses, let's talk about pronunciation. This is often overlooked, but it's critical for clear communication and sounding more natural. It's not just about individual sounds, it's about intonation, stress, and rhythm of English. Toppers don't just focus on what to say, but also how to say it.
Definitely. A small change in pronunciation can sometimes change the entire meaning of a word, or at the very least, make you much harder to understand. Mimic native speakers. Listen to how they stress words in a sentence, how their voice rises and falls. Shadowing is an amazing technique here, where you listen to a short audio clip and try to repeat it simultaneously, matching the pace and intonation.
Shadowing is fantastic for building that muscle memory in your mouth and tongue. It feels a bit silly at first, like you're just parroting, but it trains your mouth to form English sounds correctly. Also, be aware of common pronunciation pitfalls for speakers of your native language. Many languages don't have certain English sounds, or they pronounce similar letters very differently. Identifying those specific challenges is a topper move.
All right, so we've talked about starting small with the 2-minute rule, creating an immersive environment, active speaking, and honing pronunciation. But what about vocabulary and grammar? These are the building blocks, right? How do toppers approach these without getting bogged down?
Excellent question. The traditional approach is often rote memorization of word lists and endless grammar exercises, which can be incredibly tedious and ineffective for real-world application. Toppers understand that context is king. They learn vocabulary and grammar in meaningful sentences and situations, not in isolation.
Yes, when you learn a new word, don't just learn its definition. Learn it in a phrase or a sentence. Look for synonyms and antonyms. Understand its connotations. For instance, instead of just memorizing elated means very happy, try to remember she was absolutely elated when she got the job offer. That gives it life.
That for grammar. Instead of just memorizing rules like the past perfect is used for an action completed before another action in the past, try to notice how native speakers use it naturally. When you're reading or listening, pay attention to grammatical structures. How are they forming questions? How are they describing events that happened in the past? Then try to mimic those patterns in your own speaking and writing.
It's about turning passive knowledge into active understanding and usage. And for vocabulary, spaced repetition systems like Anki are fantastic. Instead of cramming, they show you words just as you're about to forget them, optimizing your memory retention. This is a very smart, topper-level strategy for efficient learning.
Absolutely. And let's not forget the power of journaling. Even if it's just a few sentences a day, writing in English forces you to think about sentence structure, vocabulary choice, and grammar in a reflective way. It's a low-pressure environment to practice constructing full thoughts in English, and you can always go back and review your entries for improvement.
That's brilliant for building both vocabulary and grammatical accuracy without the pressure of a live conversation. And it taps into that 2-minute rule again. Just 2 minutes of journaling can become a really powerful daily habit.
It really can. Now, Lily, we've talked about a lot of practical tips, but I think a huge part of being a topper in anything, especially something as personal as language fluency, is the mindset. What are your thoughts on cultivating that winning mindset?
Oh, Ava, this is probably the most secret tip of all, because it underpins everything else. A topper has a growth mindset. They believe they can improve, and they see challenges not as roadblocks, but as opportunities to learn. For English fluency, this means accepting that you will make mistakes, and that's not just okay, it's necessary for growth.
Yes, ditch the perfectionism, seriously. Aim for progress, not perfection. Celebrate the small wins, understanding a new phrase, holding a conversation for 5 minutes longer than before, correctly using a new verb tense. These small victories fuel your motivation and build confidence. A topper understands that fluency is a journey, not a destination.
And persistence is key. There will be days when you feel like you're not making any progress, when you feel discouraged. Every topper faces those moments. The difference is they don't give up. They might take a short break, reassess their methods, but they always come back to it. Consistency, as we discussed with the 2-minute rule, is the ultimate secret weapon.
Definitely. Another aspect of the topper mindset is curiosity. They're not just learning English because they have to. They're genuinely interested in the language, its culture, and the new worlds it opens up. That intrinsic motivation makes the learning process much more enjoyable and sustainable. Explore topics you love, but in English.
Absolutely. If you love fashion, read English fashion blogs. If you're a science buff, watch English documentaries. Connect English to your passions, and it stops feeling like a chore and starts feeling like an enrichment. That's a huge shift. And remember to set realistic, achievable goals. Don't aim to be a Shakespearean scholar in a month. Aim to have a confident 5-minute conversation by next month.
Smart goals are topper goals. Specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, time-bound. Instead of "I want to speak better English," try I will have a 10-minute conversation in English with a language partner twice a week for the next month. That's something you can track and celebrate. It brings clarity and direction to your efforts.
And finally, I'd say, be kind to yourself. Learning a language is a complex process. There will be good days and bad days. Don't beat yourself up over mistakes or slow progress. Focus on the journey, celebrate every step forward, and trust in the process. You are capable of becoming that English fluency topper you aspire to be.
Couldn't agree more, Lily. It really boils down to consistent, smart effort and a resilient mindset. So, to recap our secret tips for becoming an English fluency topper: utilize the 2-minute rule to beat procrastination, create an immersive English environment, actively practice speaking and recording yourself, focus on contextual vocabulary and grammar, and cultivate a growth mindset that embraces mistakes and celebrates progress.
Such solid advice, Ava. And remember, everyone, these aren't just tips. They're habits that truly fluent speakers incorporate into their lives. Start small today. Pick just one of these tips and implement it. We're confident you'll see a real difference in your journey to English